Kim Jin wiped the sweat from her forehead as she carefully adjusted her tool belt. The message from the Voth had come 3 days ago, an offer too good to refuse. Triple her usual fee for what they called simple repairs on an old research ship. Jin had worked with alien tech for 15 years, but the Voth were different. Nobody knew much about them except that they had technology humans could barely understand. "Just don't get yourself killed out there," her boss had said when she took the job. "Those Voth keep to themselves for a reason." Jin smiled at the memory as her small transport ship docked with the massive Voth vessel. It floated silently in deep space, its gray-blue hull reflecting starlight in strange patterns. From the outside, it looked dead. No running lights, minimal power signatures. The airlock hissed open. Jin stepped through, her boots clanking against the metal floor. The air smelled stale but breathable. "Hello?" she called out. Her voice echoed down empty corridors. Strange. The message had mentioned a skeleton crew, at least. Jin pulled out her scanner and checked the ship's layout. The environmental systems needing repair were located near the center of the vessel. She followed the dim emergency lights moving deeper into the abandoned ship. After 20 minutes of walking through silent hallways, Jin reached a junction that wasn't on her map. A massive wall of dark metal blocked the path where there should have been a corridor. It stretched from floor to ceiling, at least 30 feet high, with strange symbols etched into its surface. "What in the world?" Jin whispered, running her hand along the cold metal. This was no ordinary wall. The design, the thickness, this was a vault door, a very big one. Nothing in her briefing had mentioned anything like this. Jin's scanner beeped, detecting power fluctuations in the nearby systems. That must be what needed fixing. She knelt down and opened an access panel near the vault door, revealing a tangle of wires and components unlike any human technology. "Okay, let's see what we're dealing with," she muttered, pulling tools from her belt. The Voth systems used principles similar to quantum computing, but with biological components mixed in. Fascinating stuff, but tricky to work with if you didn't know what you were doing. Jin carefully traced connections, identifying power regulators and communication nodes. She found the problem after about an hour, a degraded connection causing power surges through the system. Easy enough to fix. She pulled out a universal adapter and began to make adjustments. The moment her tool touched the connection, a bright, blue spark jumped between the circuits. Jin jerked back, but it was too late. The spark cascaded through the system, lights flickering wildly throughout the corridor. No. Jin scrambled to disconnect her equipment, but the surge was already spreading. Alarms began to wail, deep, otherworldly sounds that made her teeth vibrate. Then came a grinding noise from the vault door. To Jin's horror, it was moving, sliding open just enough for a person to slip through. "That's not supposed to happen," she whispered, backing away. But before she could retreat, a powerful suction pulled her forward. The ship's atmospheric systems were equalizing pressure between sections. Jin lost her footing, tools scattering across the floor as she was yanked toward the opening. She grabbed at a wall fixture, fingers slipping as the vacuum pulled harder. "Help!" she screamed, knowing no one would hear. With one final violent tug, the air current ripped her from her handhold and sucked her through the narrow opening. Jin tumbled onto cold floor, gasping for breath. Behind her, the vault door slammed shut with a deafening boom. Darkness. Complete darkness. Jin fumbled for the light on her wrist device. A weak beam illuminated her immediate surroundings. Smooth metal walls with no visible handles or controls on this side of the door. "Hello?" she called again, voice shaking. "Is anyone here?" Only silence answered. Jin checked her oxygen meter. The air was breathable but thin. Her communicator showed no signal. She was trapped inside an alien vault with limited air, no way to call for help and no idea what was inside with her. She took a deep breath and tried to stay calm. "Think, Jin. You've been in tough spots before." But as she turned to explore further, her light caught something that made her freeze. Scratched into the wall beside the sealed door were words in human writing. "They won't let you leave once you see." Jin's hands trembled as she touched the scratches. Someone human had been here before her. Someone who never made it out. She turned, away from the door, pointing her light into the darkness ahead. The beam disappeared into seemingly endless space. The vault wasn't just a room. It was enormous, stretching far beyond her light's reach. Jin gathered her remaining tools, secured her oxygen mask as a precaution, and took her first steps into the unknown depths of the alien vault. Whatever the Voth were hiding in here, she was about to find out. And based on that warning, she might wish she hadn't. Jin's light beam cut through the darkness as she moved deeper into the vault. The air grew colder with each step. Her breath formed small clouds in front of her face. After walking for what felt like hours, the narrow passage opened into a vast chamber filled with towering machines. "Whoa," Jin whispered, her voice swallowed by the enormous space. The machines stood silent like sleeping giants. Unlike the clean, smooth technology on the Voth ship, these devices looked ancient and complex. Pipes and cables snaked between them, connecting to walls and ceiling in a chaotic web. Jin had never seen anything like them, not even in the most advanced alien tech archives. Her oxygen meter beeped, a warning. The air was getting thinner. Jin checked the reading. 3 hours of breathable atmosphere remained before carbon dioxide reached dangerous levels. She needed to find life support systems and fast. "Okay, don't panic," she told herself, running her hand through her short dark hair. "Think like a mechanic. Even alien machines followed some kind of logic." Jin approached, the nearest device studying its layout. It resembled a massive generator, but instead of burning fuel, crystalline structures pulsed weakly at its core. Power source, maybe. Jin pulled tools from her belt and carefully removed an access panel. Inside, she found components that seemed to match basic engineering principles: conductors, regulators, processors of some kind. But the materials were strange, almost organic in places, with sections that looked semi-transparent. "I can work with this," she muttered. For the next 2 hours, Jin moved between machines, learning their functions through trial and error. She nearly electrocuted herself twice and set off a small explosion once, but slowly began to understand how the systems connected. The vault seemed designed for long-term storage or preservation. Most power was directed to massive chambers beyond her current position. Life support was minimal, just enough to keep the machines running, not humans breathing. Jin found what looked like an environmental control station and began redirecting power. She disconnected non-essential systems and rerouted energy to air filtration and temperature regulation. With a series of careful adjustments and some creative rewiring, she managed to increase oxygen levels in her immediate area. Her meter beeped again, this time showing improved readings. The air was getting cleaner, warmer. Jin smiled for the first time since being trapped. "That should buy me some time," she said, wiping grimy hands on her jumpsuit. Now she needed to find a way out. Jin gathered her tools and began exploring beyond the main chamber. Corridors branched in multiple directions, each leading to specialized rooms filled with more alien equipment. In one area, she found what appeared to be data terminals. Screens flickered with symbols she couldn't read. Jin tried activating one, but it requested authentication she didn't have. "Worth a shot," she sighed. As Jin continued exploring, something odd caught her attention. Unlike most of the dust-covered machines, certain systems appeared clean and well-maintained. Power readings showed they were running at near-perfect efficiency, unlike the degraded state of everything else. "That's weird," Jin murmured, examining a recently serviced power junction. The tools used had left distinctive marks. Someone with mechanical knowledge had worked on this recently, but the ship was supposed to be abandoned. The Voth had been clear about that. Jin followed the recently maintained systems, tracing power, lines, and data cables. They all led in the same direction, deeper into the vault. Someone or something was keeping specific sections running while letting the rest decay. In one darkened corridor, Jin's light caught something on the floor. A tool, definitely not Voth design. It looked human-made, though more advanced than anything she carried. She picked it up, turning it over in her hands. The grip was worn smooth, as if used for years. "I'm not the first person in here," she whispered. Jin continued following the maintained systems, her unease growing with each step. The corridors began to slope downward, taking her deeper into the vault. Temperature dropped further. The walls changed from metal to something that looked like stone but wasn't, some kind of compressed material with strange properties. 5 hours after being trapped, Jin reached a massive set of secondary doors. Unlike the entrance to the vault, these had power. Lights glowed along their edges, and control panels hummed nearby. Someone wanted these doors operational. Someone was keeping them that way. Jin studied the control panel, which was a mix of Voth technology and what appeared to be human modifications. With careful probing, she identified the opening mechanism. Her hand hovered over it, hesitating. Whatever was being kept functional beyond these doors was important enough for someone to maintain it in secret. Did she really want to find out what it was? Jin thought about the warning scratched beside the vault entrance. They won't let you leave once you see. But she had no choice. Going back meant slow suffocation as her life support adjustments eventually failed. Forward was her only option. Jin took a deep breath and activated the door controls. With a low hum, the massive doors began to part, revealing a soft blue light beyond. Cold air rushed out, carrying a strange smell, antiseptic and somehow familiar as the gap widened. Jin peered through. Her blood turned to ice as she saw what waited on the other side. "No," she whispered. "That's impossible." Jin stepped through the doorway, her light revealing the truth of what the vault had been hiding all along. The blue light washed over Jin as she stepped through the doorway. Her breath caught in her throat. The chamber before her stretched impossibly far, a vast underground cavern that shouldn't have fit inside the ship. Rows upon rows of transparent pods lined the walls and filled the floor space, each glowing with that same eerie blue light. "What is this place?" Jin whispered, her voice small in the enormous space. She approached the nearest pod, wiping condensation from its surface with her sleeve. Inside, floating in clear fluid, was a human woman. Jin jumped back, nearly dropping her light. The woman's eyes were closed, her expression peaceful as if in deep sleep. But there was something wrong about her appearance. Metal implants lined her spine, visible through nearly transparent skin. Her fingers ended in what looked like small tools instead of nails. Jin moved to the next pod. Another human, a man this time, also modified. His chest had been opened and sealed with a clear material, revealing organs that pulsed with mechanical assistance. Parts of his brain were exposed, connected to tiny devices that blinked with internal light. Pod after pod, human after human, some modifications were subtle, barely noticeable changes to eyes or skin. Others were extreme, limbs replaced with mechanical appendages, organs swapped for synthetic versions. "This can't be happening," Jin said, her voice shaking as she moved between the rows. There had to be thousands of pods, maybe tens of thousands, stretching further than her light could reach. Near the center of the chamber, Jin found what appeared to be a control station. Unlike the older technology in the outer sections, this equipment was clearly operational and well-maintained. Jin approached cautiously and found an interface that responded to her touch. The screen activated, displaying information in both Voth, symbols, and surprisingly human language. Jin's fingers moved across the controls, pulling up files and images. "Subject acquisition records," she read aloud. "Genetic modification progress. Consciousness preservation protocols." The words made her stomach turn. The records went back centuries. Detailed accounts of humans taken from Earth, brought to this facility for what the files called adaptation processing. The earliest records dated back nearly 500 years. Jin's hands trembled as she searched deeper, looking for answers. Why would the Voth take humans? What were they creating? One file contained images of the subjects. Jin scrolled through them, her horror growing with each face. Then she stopped, staring at one image in particular. "That's impossible," she whispered. The face belonged to Lee Tae-young, the famous physicist who had discovered the principles of interstellar travel before disappearing mysteriously 30 years ago. His death had made global news. Yet here, he was listed as Subject 12387, Jin scrolled faster, recognizing more faces. Dr. Han Sumin, the brilliant biologist, reported lost in a shuttle accident in 2132. Captain Pak Jun-ho, whose legendary exploration ship vanished without a trace near the Cygnus sector. All here. All alive, in some sense of the word. Jin moved. Away from the console, her mind racing. These weren't just random abductions. The Voth had been taking specific humans, scientists, explorers, geniuses in their fields, for generations. She walked slowly between the pods again, looking more carefully at the modifications. The changes weren't random. Each person had been altered for a purpose, their bodies adapted for specific environments or tasks. Some appeared designed for extreme cold, others for high radiation or crushing pressure. Near the back of the chamber, Jin found newer pods. The humans inside these appeared more extensively modified, with less distinction between organic and mechanical parts. In some, the bodies had been altered so completely they barely looked human anymore. One pod caught Jin's attention. Unlike the others, this one was connected to multiple power sources and monitoring systems. Inside was a child, no more than 10 years old, with completely silver skin that seemed to shift like liquid metal. The child's eyes opened suddenly, staring directly at Jin. Jin stumbled backward, crashing into another pod. The child's eyes tracked her movement, though the rest of the body remained motionless. "Can you hear me?" Jin asked, her voice barely audible. The child blinked once, slowly, deliberately. Jin approached again, pressing her hand against the pod's surface. "What have they done to you?" A soft hum filled the air as nearby monitors activated. Words appeared on a screen next to the pod. "They make us ready." Jin's heart pounded. Ready for what? The words changed. To survive what comes. Before Jin could ask more, alarms blared throughout the chamber. Red lights flashed along the walls. The pods nearest to her began to pulse with increased activity, their occupants showing signs of movement. Jin ran back to the central console. Warning messages flashed across the screen. Unauthorized access, security protocols engaged, preservation. Integrity threatened. And then another message that made Jin's blood run cold. Initiating selective revival sequence. Throughout the massive chamber, certain pods began to drain their fluid. Mechanical arms descended from the ceiling, moving toward the awakening subjects. Jin watched in horror as one pod opened completely. The modified human inside, a woman with metallic skin and eyes that glowed like amber, sat up slowly, cables disconnecting from her body with wet, sucking sounds. "Oh God," Jin whispered, backing away from the console. The modified woman turned her head, fixing those glowing eyes directly on Jin. Her mouth opened, revealing teeth that had been replaced with something that looked like circuitry. "You shouldn't be here," she said, her voice a strange mixture of human speech and electronic tones. "No one can know about us yet. We aren't ready." Jin turned and ran, heading for the entrance she'd come through. Behind her, more pods were opening. More modified humans were waking up. As she reached the doorway, Jin looked back one last time at the enormous chamber, at the thousands of pods containing what had once been human beings. Whatever the Voth were planning, whatever they were preparing, these people, for she knew one thing for certain. She had to get out. She had to warn someone, anyone, about what was happening here. The modified woman with glowing eyes was walking now, moving with unnatural speed toward Jin. Jin slammed her hand on the door controls and squeezed through the opening before they fully closed. The last thing she saw was those glowing eyes watching her with what might have been sadness. Jin ran through the dark corridors, the sound of her boots echoing off metal walls. Behind her, alarms continued to blare. The modified humans hadn't followed her through the door. Not yet, but Jin knew she couldn't stop moving. She had to find a way out of this nightmare. Her light beam bounced wildly as she ran, revealing glimpses of machinery and unknown technology. Jin's mind raced with what she had seen. Humans modified like lab animals. Historical figures supposedly dead but preserved in pods. A child with liquid metal skin. None of it made sense. After several minutes of frantic running, Jin stopped to catch her breath. She leaned against a wall, chest heaving. The alarms had faded to a distant wail. Maybe she'd lost them. Think, she muttered between gasps. There has to be another exit. Jin studied her surroundings. This section of the vault looked different, cleaner, more advanced than the areas she'd explored earlier. Along one wall ran a series of smaller pods, different from the massive storage units in the main chamber. Curiosity overcame fear. Jin approached cautiously, shining her light on the nearest pod. Unlike the others, this one had a simple interface with a countdown timer. The display showed less than 5 minutes remaining. Countdown to what? Jin whispered. As if in answer, the pod's surface became transparent, revealing a woman inside. Unlike the modified humans, this one showed no signs of alteration. No metal implants, no strange skin. Just an ordinary human woman who appeared to be in her 50s, with streaks of gray in her black hair. The timer continued to count down. 4:32. 4:31. 4:30. Jin studied the pod's controls. There seemed to be an emergency stop function, but activating it might harm whoever was inside. She hesitated, fingers hovering over the interface. Behind her, a distant crash echoed through the corridors. The modified humans were coming. Jin made her decision. She hit what appeared to be an acceleration sequence. The countdown sped up rapidly. 4-ing, 3-ing, 2-ing, 1. With a soft hiss, the pod began to open. Steam escaped as the seal broke. Jin stepped back, ready to run if necessary. The woman's eyes fluttered open. She took a deep breath, then began coughing violently. Jin watched, frozen in place, as the woman pushed herself up to a sitting position and looked around groggily. When her eyes found Jin, they widened in surprise. "You're not supposed to be here," she said, her voice hoarse from disuse. "How did you get in?" Jin kept her distance. "I was trapped. Who are you?" The woman rubbed her throat. "Dr. Park Hana. I need water." The name hit Jin like a physical blow. Dr. Park Hana? The physicist who disappeared during the Europa mission? That's what they told everyone, yes. Dr. Park swung her legs over the edge of the pod, testing her strength. "What year is it?" 162, Jin answered. 30 years, Dr. Park murmured. "Right on schedule." Jin heard another crash, closer this time. "Look, I don't know who you are or what's happening here, but there are things coming. Modified humans, we need to hide." Dr. Park's expression changed from confusion to alarm. "They're awake? Which ones?" "I don't know." One had metal skin and glowing eyes. They were in pods, thousands of them. Some looked like famous, people who died years ago. "The Beta series," Dr. Park said, standing up shakily. "We need to move. Now." She pressed a hidden panel on the wall, revealing a small chamber. "In here. Quickly." Jin hesitated. "How do I know I can trust you?" "You can't," Dr. Park said bluntly. "But those things, as you call them, will be here in approximately 2 minutes, and they'll take you to be processed. Is that what you want?" Jin ducked into the hidden chamber, Dr. Park following close behind. The wall slid shut just as the sound of footsteps reached the corridor outside. The chamber was small but contained basic supplies: water, emergency rations, even a small medical kit. Dr. Park drank deeply from a water pouch, then turned to Jin. "You're a mechanic," she said, noticing Jin's tool belt. "That explains how you managed to activate my revival sequence. How did you— The Voth hired you, didn't they? To repair something on this vessel?" Jin nodded slowly. "They said it was routine maintenance, then I got trapped in this vault." Dr. Park laughed, a harsh sound with no humor in it. "The Voth, always the perfect cover story." "What are you talking about? Who are those people in the pods? What's happening?" "Here?" Jin demanded. Dr. Park sighed, suddenly looking much older than her apparent age. "The Voth aren't responsible for this facility. They're just the faces we use." "We?" "Humans," Dr. Park said simply. "Humans from approximately 300 years in your future." Jin stared at her. "That's impossible." "Is it more impossible than what you've already seen?" The modified humans? The historical figures preserved in pods? Dr. Park leaned forward. Listen carefully because we don't have much time. Everything you think you know about human history is about to change. Dr. Park pulled out a small device and projected a holographic image, a timeline showing Earth and nearby star systems. Certain points glowed red. 170 years from now, humanity detects an approaching extinction-level event. A massive wave of cosmic radiation moving through our galaxy at near light speed. When it hits our solar system, all organic life as we know it will end. Jin watched as the simulation showed Earth being engulfed by the invisible wave, all life signs blinking out. We tried everything, Dr. Park continued. Underground bunkers, space habitats, Mars colonies. Nothing worked. The radiation penetrates everything, destroys DNA at the molecular level. But time travel? That's not time travel exactly. More like sending information back. Consciousness. Data. Dr. Park pointed to her head. I'm not physically from the future. This body was grown here, but my mind, my memories, they were transmitted back and imprinted on this brain. Jin tried to process what she was hearing. And the modified humans? Our best chance at survival. We've been selectively taking brilliant minds throughout history, people whose contributions wouldn't significantly alter the timeline, and using their genetic material to create humans who can survive what's coming. The modifications are attempts to create human bodies that can withstand the radiation, metal skin, enhanced organs, modified DNA. Dr. Park's voice softened. It looks cruel, I know, but we're trying to save our species. Jin thought of the child with liquid metal skin. And the Voth? What's their role in this? Partners, of a sort. They face extinction, too. We offered them a deal. We helped them evolve to survive. They provide us with technology and this facility. Everyone thinks they're the mysterious aliens doing experiments, but really, we're both just trying to survive together. Outside their hiding place, the sound of movement had stopped. Jin wasn't sure if that was good or bad. Why are you telling me this? She asked finally. Dr. Park looked at her with tired eyes. Because you weren't supposed to be here, but now that you are, we need your help. The system is failing. Something's gone wrong with the evolutionary process in the beta series. Those modified humans you saw, they're becoming unstable, dangerous. What can I possibly do? You're a mechanic who understands both human and alien technology. You figured out how to navigate this facility on your own. Dr. Park handed Jin the holographic projector. We need people like you. Before Jin could respond, a loud bang shook their hiding place. Metal groaned as something powerful tried to tear through the wall. They've found us, Dr. Park whispered. The wall creaked and bent inward as something powerful struck it again. Jin and Dr. Park backed away, pressing themselves against the opposite side of the small chamber. We need to move, Dr. Park said, feeling along the back wall. There's another passage here. A panel slid open, revealing a narrow tunnel. Red emergency lights pulsed along its length. Go. Dr. Park pushed Jin forward just as the damaged wall tore open behind them. Metal fingers curled around the edges of the hole. The modified woman with glowing amber eyes peered in, her face expressionless. Jin crawled into the tunnel with Dr. Park right behind her. They moved as quickly as possible on hands and knees through the cramped space. Behind them, metal scraped against metal as their pursuer tried to follow. Where does this lead? Jin asked, voice tight with fear. Central control room, Dr. Park replied between heavy breaths. If we can get there, we might have a chance. The tunnel seemed endless, branching occasionally. Dr. Park called out directions at each junction. Left, right, straight, right again. Jin's knees ached and her palms were raw from crawling, but she kept moving. Finally, they reached a vertical shaft with a ladder. Jin climbed up first, emerging into a small, dimly lit room filled with screens and control panels. Dr. Park followed, then sealed the tunnel entrance behind them. That won't hold them for long, she said, moving quickly to the main console. Her fingers flew across the controls. The facility's security systems are failing. When my revival sequence completed, it triggered an automatic protocol. Jin looked at the nearest screen. Red warning messages flashed across it. What kind of protocol? Self-destruct, Dr. Park said matter-of-factly. Standard procedure if the facility is compromised. Can't risk exposure. Jin felt her blood run cold. Self-destruct? You mean this whole place is going to blow up? Not exactly. More like molecular deconstruction. The entire structure will break down at the atomic level. Dr. Park pointed to a countdown on one of the screens. We have less than 30 minutes. Jin stared at the timer in disbelief. How do we stop it? We don't. It's irreversible once initiated. Dr. Park turned to face Jin. But we can save what matters. She gestured to another console where a status display showed hundreds of small green dots. These are storage pods containing genetic samples and consciousness data. The most important part of the project. They're designed to jettison automatically, before deconstruction, but the system's damaged. Dr. Park looked at Jin with desperate eyes. This is where your skills come in. Jin approached the console cautiously. The interface was complex but followed logical engineering principles she recognized. The ejection mechanism is stuck, she said, examining the readouts. Power flow is interrupted in 3 places. Can you fix it? Jin studied the diagrams. Maybe. I'd need to reroute power manually from these junction points. She pointed to locations on a facility map. But that means going back out there. There's another way, Dr. Park said. She crossed to a wall panel and entered a code. The panel slid open, revealing a maintenance shaft. Service corridors, they run parallel to the main ones. A loud bang echoed through the room. The sealed tunnel entrance bulged inward. They're coming, Jin said. Dr. Park grabbed a small device from a nearby shelf and handed it to Jin. This will help you reroute the power. I'll try to slow them down. From here. Jin hesitated. Why are you helping them, these experiments? They're horrifying. Because the alternative is extinction, Dr. Park replied simply. I've seen it happen, Jin. I've watched Earth die. Everyone I ever loved turned to dust by radiation we couldn't stop. Her eyes filled with tears. We're not monsters. We're survivors doing the only thing we can. Another bang, louder this time. The sealed entrance wouldn't hold much longer. Jin made her decision. She took the device and entered the maintenance shaft. The service corridors were tight but navigable. Jin moved quickly, following directions from a small map on the device Dr. Park had given her. She reached the first junction point within minutes. The power coupling was obvious, a massive connection point where energy flowed between sections of the facility. Just as Jin had suspected, it was damaged. She pulled tools from her belt and began repairs, working with practiced efficiency. I've got the first one, she called through her communicator. Moving to the second. Hurry. Dr. Park's voice crackled back. They've broken through. I've sealed the inner doors, but they won't hold for long. Jin raced to the second junction. This one was worse. Completely severed connections. She worked frantically, sweat dripping from her forehead as she spliced cables and rerouted power flows. The facility shuddered around her. Warning lights flashed along the corridors. What was that? Jin asked. Deconstruction is beginning in the outer sections, Dr. Park replied, her voice tight. 20 minutes remaining. Jin finished the second repair and sprinted toward the third junction. When she arrived, her heart sank. The damage was extensive, melted components and destroyed circuitry. This is bad, she reported. I don't think I can fix it in time. There was a pause before Dr. Park responded. There's another option. You can manually override at the primary core, but she hesitated. You wouldn't have time to get back. Jin understood what that meant. I'd be trapped. Yes. Unless what? Unless you take the final pod. Dr. Park's voice was quiet now. One suspension pod remains functional. You could enter stasis, join the project. Your skills would be invaluable to the future. Jin froze, the reality of the choice before her. sinking in. Stay and possibly save humanity's future or try to escape with the truth. What about you, she asked. My consciousness has already been duplicated and stored. This body isn't important. Another tremor shook the facility, stronger this time. Parts of the ceiling collapsed nearby. 15 minutes, Dr. Park warned. Jin made her way to the primary core, a massive chamber housing the facility's main power source. She found the manual override and began the sequence to restore power to the ejection systems. As she worked, Jin thought about what she'd seen. The modified humans in their pods, the child with silver skin, Dr. Park's timeline showing Earth's destruction. Was it possible? Could this project, as horrifying as it seemed, truly be humanity's only hope? The override completed with a satisfying hum. Power flowed back into the ejection systems. It's done, Jin reported. Good, Dr. Park replied. The pods are launching now. You need to decide, Jin. The suspension pod is in Section 3, Corridor B. You have 10 minutes to reach it. Jin stood in the core room thinking. If she tried to escape, she might never make it out before the facility deconstructed. Even if she did, who would believe her story? And if Dr. Park was telling the truth, exposing the project might doom humanity. The facility shook violently. A support beam crashed down nearby. Jin? Are you there? Dr. Park sounded worried. I'm here, Jin replied. I've made my decision. 7 minutes later, Jin stood before the final suspension pod. It opened with a gentle hiss, revealing a clean, comfortable space inside. Are you sure about this? Dr. Park asked through the communicator. She had remained in the control room, working until the end to ensure the sample pods launched safely. Jin looked at the pod. No, but I'm doing it anyway. She placed her hand on the smooth surface. If what you've told me is true, they'll need people who can build things, fix things. They will, Dr. Park confirmed. More than you can imagine. And if you're lying, then I guess you'll never know. Jin took a deep breath and climbed into the pod. As she lay back, she thought about the life she was leaving behind. No family, few friends, a job repairing other people's machines. And ahead? A future where her skills might help save humanity, however strange and modified that humanity might become. The pod began to close. Through the transparent cover, Jin watched as the walls around her started to shimmer, the first signs of molecular deconstruction. Good luck, Jin. Dr. Park's voice came through once more, before fading to static. B. Pod sealed completely. Cold mist filled the interior as the suspension process began. Jin's last conscious thought was of the child with silver skin, and she wondered if that strange new form of humanity would be the ones to wake her, centuries from now when Earth faced its final challenge. Her eyes closed as the facility dissolved around her, the pod protected in its special field as it prepared for a journey into an uncertain future.